3, 2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of Grok Talk, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. We are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone-stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GraniteGrok.com.
Grok Talk.
All right, we're back. Welcome to Hour 2 of Grok Talk, brought to you by CNHT. Visit cnht.org. Do it. You know you want to. And, of course, the bloggers at GraniteGrok.com. Check out this and past programs on Spreaker, Stitcher, iTunes, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, and, of course, at GraniteGrok.com and TheRockandHCR.com. We are also on YouTube, and Ustream, Facebook, and Twitter. Good morning. Good morning, take 2.
Good morning. Yep.
Right. So a couple things I wanted to talk about besides elections. Interesting week. I won't start with the big one. I'll start down here. The gun ban bill, the insurance gun ban bill, shot down.
Yes,
and we posted the 22 names of the 22 Democrats who still wanted to try to save that. For those of you who aren't familiar, the bill would have required anybody who came into the state with a firearm to have liability insurance, which of course doesn't exist, and would be very not the best angle. You know,
that would pass in Massachusetts.
The Lords
easily.
of London might want to insure firearms, but not too many people are going to take. Well, somebody like them, but nobody's going to take that kind of risk. So basically, it's a gun ban bill.
And word for word, it's being proposed by Democrats in other states.
Yeah,
there are a couple of other states that are actually trying to implement it now.
Now, do those other states have a Catherine Rogers?
Somebody just like them. Vermont has one. California, Hawaii.
But is theirs on the Project Veritas video?
I don't think so. No.
Okay, because
really?
this one is. Yeah.
This one's we get to see her in an upcoming episode.
We'll see what appears on the next video, but I believe that a person with that very similar name, her initials are Catherine Rogers, is on video.
She has weird hair. Yeah.
Otherwise known as Jabba the Huttress.
Jabba the Huttress. All right, so the legalized marijuana bill died. I haven't really dug into this one yet, but I want to because I want to take issue with this piece of legislation, not because it passed or failed, but because of the way it was written and why. I think the taxes associated with this legalization process were enormous. So what it really looks like is that the libertarians, or whoever it is, the Kyle Taskers of the world, who exist in the legislative world for no other purpose than to legalize marijuana, pretty much gave up the ghost on this one. A $530 tax per ounce if you have buds, basically.
Yeah.
So you can grow plants. I'm like, what happened to limited taxation? You're basically prostituting yourself out to the DRA just so you can grow pot in your house
and not get picked up for it.
Right. And I'm like, that I have a problem with that.
Yeah, it
so they're
really
showing
is,
that they're actually pro-taxers, they're pro-government.
And no, it's really that they're willing to do whatever it takes to get what they want.
Right.
Period.
Right, basically, and the
ends justify the means, including destroying the entire concept.
A couple years ago, I wrote a rather lengthy blog that was well responded to with regard to legalizing marijuana, not pro or con, but questioning what it would do to the regulatory state and the taxes.
Right.
And I got all kinds of crap for that. Yeah. And here we have their bill, and if you go look at RLCNH or on the Free State Project sites, they're really upset that it didn't pass. So-and-so killed it, da-da-da-da-da. But look at what you were trying to pass.
And do you ever think that those taxes were going to come down?
No, they never do.
You know, this is the same thing as the casino bill.
If you look at the arc of the legislature since 2010, it's not going to the right. It's not moving towards liberty. It hasn't moved towards liberty in years.
Correct. Just because you have a Republican majority doesn't mean that
they think in 5 years from now they'll have 20,000 free staters here and that's going to make the difference? Well, no. 20,000 freaking Massachusetts voters come across the border every year and vote here. Practically, you know.
The public schools pump them out, too.
Yeah, so it just doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, and I think it's the same thing with the casino bill, because basically what the casino bill is going to do is have one, maybe two, extremely regulated entities, commercial entities, which Democrats think that's fine. They ought to be regulating everything. That's fascism. when you're telling the business exactly what to do to run your business. But really all it is just another revenue stream to be used by the Democrats. And effectively what the Democrats were trying to do, or the Libertarians just to get the weed, but effectively falling into the Democrat trap of saying, here's yet another revenue stream that will be mighty plenty.
Yeah, you can make government bigger if I can smoke dope and not worry about it.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, that's a perfect summarization of it. Let me smoke
That's-
dope and I'll give you lots of money.
That's why I never climbed on board with this. I could care less, It is not something I'm concerned about. That's not a freedom issue, smoking dope. It's their personal desire above all else. That's what I've seen when I've seen that crowd. I'm like, hey, guys, that's not the way to sell this,
No. So effectively, the folks that claim they are for liberty and for small government and for keeping the government out of everything have effectively participated in a vote-buying scheme where they have got Democrats, or attempted to get Democrats, on board with their so-called libertarian agenda by selling the agenda using a tax carrot for the Democrats.
It looks that way. I don't know who sponsored it, but based on the chatter, it sounds like they were supporting it. And if you look at this tax scheme, that's what it looks like. It looks like vote buying.
Yeah,
in the legislature.
and
it didn't work. But
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm always amazed that who's on the wrong side of this issue. I couldn't give a damn about pot myself. I'm not going to touch that stuff. But from the point of view of small government and libertarianism, and let's take a look back at the 19th century for a moment. You could try any kind of medicine that you wanted. Some of it was snake oil. But caveat emptor, do your research and try what you want. And along came big government and the FDA and all the three-letter agencies, and now you can't even buy the wrong kind of cough syrup without being arrested. Something's wrong with this picture, and we've come a long way from where it should have been your responsibility. The Republicans should be on the side of shrinking this regulatory state and just having a simple set of laws that say thou shalt not harm others. And normally it would be the Democrats trying to push this, but what we have got somehow is the Republicans are against any kind of shrinkage of this on the grounds of law and order, and the Democrats are pro it, but by God, we want our money first.
I think
mean,
this
it comes
ties
down.
in.
What he just said ties into your quote that I used last night.
It does, and it also ties into my argument about local control from our interview last week, and the idea of extremism. I think, and I didn't articulate it well then, that it's the people moving left, the rhinos, the left-leaning independents, and the Democrats who are the extremists, because they are extreme in their departure from constitutional republic. Local control. My argument was you can make your government as big as you want locally, if that's what you want.
Yeah,
but
people
you
move out.
can't do that if the federal government's in charge, and you certainly can't do anything else. You can't make it smaller because the federal government won't let you. So, what about the government shutdown question? Well, the government never really shuts down. The government gets its money from the states. If the states aren't sending their money to the federal government, they're spending it locally on whatever they want, which is the point.
Yeah, and as I've said forever, so what if the federal government shuts down? We got 50 other governments ready and waiting,
Right.
and they're perfectly capable of doing it.
So
And they're only hamstrung because the federal government has taken on far more than it should have in the first place. Devolve that stuff back to the
it's
state
going to
senate.
anyway. I mean, they're at the moment of collapse. They cannot continue what they're doing. The end is near. If you're trillions of dollars in debt, what are you going to do? Say, okay, we're just not going to pay it back.
Here's the problem.
It's coming.
Here's the problem. The way it should be is that you shrink the federal government dramatically. You don't collect that equivalent amount in taxes, and you let the states choose what to fund, what to collect in taxes.
Yeah, they're not going to give it up. They're not going to give up their authority.
The problem you're going to get is when the central government does collapse, it still owes all that money, which basically means they're going to tell us that we still owe that money. So what you're going to get, if the states take over the roles that they rightfully ought to have, is the states will tax us, but we've still got to pay the feds for their stranded costs, basically.
Yeah, but it's a deal that we might have to make.
One way or another, a deal is going to have to be made one way or the other. But you're right, Ed. They're not going to give it up because progressivism is all about centralizing power as high up the stream as it possibly can. And you look at the this wildlife refuge that finally ended this week as well. Ill-conceived, ill-done.
Well, that was a great job of picking the wrong place and the wrong time.
Yeah, it was a fustercluck right from the get-go.
And these people set out to make a point and had no plan, basically.
Yeah,
no point.
But it does illustrate the larger issue, which is out west, the huge amounts of land that the federal government owns. Gobbled up, and then they're kicking everybody else off. They're taking, it's all tied into lots of other stuff, but environmentalists love it because they're making the lands pristine.
That's their property.
Again.
That's their property from that day on.
Right.
They'll set up their own offices, their own security system, their own bureaucracy, and the environmentalists will run those federal lands.
Well, they do now.
Yeah.
They've already taken and wormed their way in, that walk through the institutional culture centers. They've all but taken over the BLM, the EPA, and basically the Interior Department. All of those entities are taken over by the environmentalists. They saw the levers of power. They saw as Lenin said, they saw the power laying in the street, and they simply picked it up.
Yeah, they're communists and socialists and Marxists. They're not environmentalists. That's just a means.
Let's go back to the origins of this. I don't mean the historical origins.
I think it's caves in South Africa. That's where they are.
yeah. Well, yeah, and the paintings on the wall make more sense in those caves. Make more sense than most of what comes out of the federal government. But so, you talk about the overarching regulation. I mean, the whole reason that Clive Bundy and his family got into trouble with the federal government in the first place is because they had grazing rights. They were paying the leases. They had their animals on what should have been public grounds that should have been common to the state, and instead were owned and mismanaged by the federal government. Then let's sort of fast forward to Oregon. The family that got into trouble there essentially were trying to manage their little piece of their leased federal lands, and one of the things that happens with the federal government managing lands is it doesn't manage them. It allows the accumulation of underbrush, resulting in enormous forest fires that cover huge areas and do massive destruction because controlled burns weren't allowed to happen, underbrush wasn't cleared, and so on. These poor farmers actually tried to clear some underbrush, set a controlled fire that spread a little too far, and they were charged for it. They were trying to manage the lands that the federal government wouldn't manage, essentially.
Correct. But it's a huge issue, and there is we've had the
the problem is that they didn't register Democrat and donate to the gay lobby. If they'd done that first, then everybody, including Al Sharpton, would have come out to defend
you look
them
up on the internet, see who they donated to, and they're free and clear.
Brendan Eich would still be head of a web company.
They get a little Monopoly Web a little Monopoly Web version of the get out of jail free card.
And if Carl Gibson would have registered as a Democrat instead of a Republican to be funny, he wouldn't be waiting trial now, would he?
Yes, no, that's true. Hey, we have about a minute before we have to go to our next guest. I'm sorry, go ahead.
But we've had that Utah state representative on.
Oh,
the land council.
We got to have him on again.
We do need to bring him on to talk about this because it's illustrative of this whole problem. And they're trying very desperately to say, look, at the very least, give the state half the lands and let us manage it more productively and better for the environment. But
they can't give up a square.
They tried to sandbag Carly Fiorina down at the Hollis Pharmacy. They set a kid on her with the question of, what's your position on the Oregon occupation? And just like everything else, I wish that woman was still in the race. She was right back with the right answer. I cannot condone the occupation, but the federal government should not own any of those lands. They belong to the states.
Correct.
All right, we got about a minute. We're going to talk to Chrissy Harbin from AFP about the Clean Power Plan, so please have your questions ready. And the SCOTUS decision on the Clean Power Plan. But when we come back from that, the other item that I had for us to talk about was expanded Medicaid in the New Hampshire House.
Oh, the income tax.
The new income tax. So we're going to come right back. You're all good to bring her in, and let me just press a little button, and we'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Excellent.